a celebrated actress who dedicated 3 decades to perfecting her craft, building an empire on discipline, raw talent, and the relentless work ethic that transforms decent programming into legendary television, arrives at what should be a friendly promotional chat, only to discover herself targeted by a host intent on questioning whether her achievements are legitimate. Before we dive into this incredible story, please hit that subscribe button and tell us in comments what you really think caused Courteney Cox to completely lose it on live television. When someone who co-created television's most enduring comedy franchise faces off against a talk show, personality convinced that lasting success equals corruption, that decades of relevance must hide something sinister, that your friend's hardships somehow invalidate your victories. You're witnessing more than just another awkward celebrity moment. What unfolds when a discussion about upcoming ventures transforms into an interrogation about whether you've earned anything? When questions stop being questions and become accusations wrapped in journalistic pretense. This isn't your typical daytime drama gone sideways. This isn't just boundary-crossing, uncomfortable television. This is the instant Courteney Cox. Yes, the Monica Geller who made Thursday night's appointment viewing for a generation, who's constructed a multifaceted career spanning acting, film work, and producing, decided she'd tolerated enough of someone attempting to dismantle everything she'd sacrificed to create. What followed became one of the most spectacular verbal takedowns in broadcast history. The View's production team had been thrilled securing Courteney, understanding that any Friends alumnus still commanded massive audience fascination years beyond the series finale. At 59, she remained busier than most actors half her age, developing content, performing, managing her production ventures, somehow maintaining authenticity in an environment notorious for destroying people systematically. Her booking was straightforward. Promote recent projects, discuss her company's pipeline, perhaps share beloved friends' anecdotes for devoted fans who couldn't move on. Standard operating procedure. Her representatives had negotiated typical parameters: maintain positivity, spotlight current endeavors, touch on nostalgia lightly, but keep everything upbeat. Absolutely standard protocol for someone with Courteney's stature, someone who'd mastered media navigation through 30 years of experience, always with elegance and precision. But Joy Behar had spent her morning brewing resentment over something she'd convinced herself represented injustice. That Courteney Cox appeared to have coasted, while fellow cast members struggled. That her trajectory remained consistent while others battled demons. That she'd mysteriously avoided the catastrophes that destroyed so many performers. In Joy's mind, this disparity demanded confrontation. This perceived advantage required explanation. This success needed justification on national television. The producers had confirmed enthusiastically, reassuring everyone this would be celebratory, not combative. They recognized Courteney's value, one of those exceptional celebrities who'd remained approachable, current, and admired across 3 decades. Someone audiences genuinely wanted to hear from. What Joy fundamentally misunderstood, what people who've never built anything enduring can never comprehend, was that Courteney Cox hadn't navigated 30 years through fortune, or scheming, or corporate maneuvering. She survived by excelling at her profession better than virtually anyone, treating colleagues with genuine respect, arriving prepared without exception, prioritizing excellence over fleeting fame, and never permitting anyone to suggest that achievement requires sacrificing your principles. This story isn't about whether famous people should face scrutiny, whether successful individuals should answer questions about advantages. whether 3 decades of accomplishment invites examination. This is about distinguishing legitimate inquiry from barely disguised bitterness, separating honest curiosity from accusations masquerading as journalism, differentiating between accountability and simply destroying someone because their success triggers your insecurities. Success without apology isn't arrogance, it's honesty. Joy Behar believed she was asking courageous questions, forcing someone to defend their advantages, speaking for everyone who resented people who seemed to have easy paths, exposing the unfairness of why some thrive while others collapse. What she actually revealed was her own inadequacy, demonstrating that certain people cannot witness others succeeding without needing to find fault, without searching for hidden manipulation, without assuming something corrupt must be lurking beneath achievement. And when Courteney Cox, who'd spent 3 decades being professional when it hurt, gracious when it wasn't reciprocated, diplomatic when she had every justification for fury, finally reached her absolute limit with Joy's particular variety of thinly disguised hostility. What erupted wasn't simple anger. It was 30 years of encountering people incapable of understanding that success and decency coexist beautifully, that you can be gifted and compassionate, that working intelligently and making strategic decisions isn't suspicious. It's called professional competence. Prepare yourself, because what's coming isn't just an explosive confrontation. It's a complete education in recognizing when someone's attempting to diminish you for their psychological comfort, refusing to apologize for excellence, and defending not just yourself, but everyone who's been shamed for succeeding while others stumbled. The View's studio hummed with its characteristic late-morning atmosphere, the audience settling in, genuinely excited about having Courteney Cox as their guest. The panel assembled around their iconic table. Joy Behar, Whoopi Goldberg, Sarah Haynes, and Alyssa Farah Griffin, each apparently prepared for what everyone anticipated would be pleasant, entertaining conversation with someone universally cherished. Courteney entered, radiating that signature warmth that had made her a cultural icon, her smile authentic and comfortable, dressed in understated sophistication that made designer clothing appear effortless. At 59, she somehow embodied both Monica from Friends and someone who'd evolved into something richer, maintaining that recognizable essence while adding dimensions of experience and perspective. "We are absolutely thrilled having you here," Whoopi announced with genuine enthusiasm as Courteney settled into the guest seat. "You look absolutely incredible as always." "Thank you so much," Courteney responded, her voice carrying that distinctive quality millions had absorbed during a decade of Thursday evenings. "I'm genuinely happy being here." The conversation flowed smoothly initially. Inquiries about her latest production initiatives, discussion of her company's forthcoming slate, lighthearted exchange about working behind versus in front of cameras. Courteney was completely in her element, articulate, engaged, obviously passionate about her current endeavors. Sarah asked about sustaining longevity in entertainment, and Courteney delivered thoughtful perspectives about adapting with the industry, maintaining curiosity, building teams with talented collaborators. It was precisely the substantive, engaging dialogue that demonstrated why she'd remained relevant across 3 decades. For nearly 10 minutes, everything proceeded exactly as planned. Professional, compelling, the type of interview that benefits everyone involved. Then Joy Behar, who'd been strangely silent throughout, leaned forward with an expression that immediately transformed the studio's energy. "You know, Courteney," Joy began, and something in her inflection made everyone pause. Hosts, audience, even crew members seemed to detect a shift. I need to address something that's troubled me for years. Don't you find it somewhat suspicious how you've managed staying so prominent while certain Friends co-stars have struggled significantly? The smile on Courtney's face wavered slightly, confusion flickering across her features. I'm sorry. What exactly do you mean by suspicious? Her voice remained controlled, but the warmth had noticeably chilled. Joy's expression hardened as she pressed ahead, seemingly oblivious to, or perhaps energized by, the uncomfortable tension now permeating the studio. While you've launched multiple successful series post-Friends, you've maintained the spotlight consistently. You've preserved this flawless image. Meanwhile, others from your cast have battled addiction, personal crises, financial disasters. It simply appears you've had an easier journey than them. The other hosts exchanged concerned glances. Whoopi attempted intervening, clearly sensing this was heading somewhere problematic. Joy, perhaps we should concentrate on Courtney's new work. No, I believe this is important, Joy interrupted, her voice growing more aggressive, more confrontational. I mean, consider Matthew Perry's battles. Consider the obstacles some others have confronted. Meanwhile, you're sitting here looking flawless, career untouched, discussing your latest triumph. Don't you feel guilty about that? Courtney's jaw visibly tightened as she processed what was occurring. This wasn't merely an awkward question. This was an assault disguised as journalism. Guilty about what precisely? Her voice had acquired an edge now, professional courtesy beginning to surrender to justified anger. About working diligently, about making decisions that have kept me grounded. I'm not sure I understand what you're suggesting here. I'm not suggesting anything, Joy fired back, leaning forward with predatory intensity. I'm asking directly, do you believe you've benefited from being the safe option while your co-stars took chances that didn't always succeed? The studio audience had gone absolutely silent, the comfortable atmosphere of promotional interview having evaporated completely. This was confrontation now, and everyone sensed it escalating. Courtney's media training was obviously activating as she attempted maintaining composure, but there was fire building behind her eyes. 30 years of professionalism warring with the deeply human desire to defend herself against accusations that made zero sense. Joy, I believe you're mischaracterizing both myself and my friends, Courtney replied, and her voice carried a warning now, a boundary being established. Each of us has confronted our own obstacles, made our own decisions, dealt with our own struggles. To suggest I've somehow had unfair advantages, or that I should feel guilty about my career decisions, is not only insulting to me, it's disrespectful to them as well. Joy scoffed audibly, shaking her head with theatrical contempt. Oh, please spare me the diplomatic response. Everyone knows there's a hierarchy in Hollywood, and certain people just understand how to manipulate the system better than others. You've clearly mastered that manipulation. The accusation hung in the air like poison gas, the implication that Courtney's success stemmed from manipulation rather than merit, from gaming systems rather than simply being exceptional at her craft. It was the type of insult that cuts deeply precisely because it diminishes everything someone has genuinely achieved. Courtney's carefully maintained facade began cracking. Her hands gripped the chair arms as she stared directly at Joy, her voice dropping to a dangerously low register. Are you seriously suggesting my success is somehow undeserved? That I've manipulated my path through my career while my friends have suffered? Because if that's what you're saying, Joy, then we need having a very different conversation. Joy, either not recognizing the warning signals or choosing to ignore them, perhaps emboldened by her own position, her own platform, her apparent belief that she could say whatever she wanted, doubled down on her attack. I'm saying what everyone in this industry understands, but won't articulate publicly. Some people get fortunate, some people get protected, and some people know exactly which strategies to employ to stay on top. You've been remarkably proficient at all three. That was the moment something fundamental shifted in Courteney Cox. The pleasant, media-trained celebrity mask slipped away entirely, replaced by something raw and authentic that few people had ever witnessed from someone so famously professional. When she spoke again, her voice carried a strength and authority that commanded immediate attention from everyone in the studio. You know what, Joy? I've been sitting here attempting to be polite, attempting to give you the benefit of the doubt, thinking perhaps you were just having a difficult day. Or perhaps you genuinely had some legitimate point you were trying to make. She paused, and the pause itself was powerful, everyone hanging on what would come next. But I realize now that this isn't about legitimate questions or journalism or even entertainment. This is about you attempting to tear down someone who's worked their entire life to build something meaningful. The other host sat frozen, clearly uncertain whether to intervene or let this moment play out. Whoopi's eyes darted between the two women, calculating whether mediation was possible. Sarah and Alyssa looked like they wanted to vanish entirely. Joy, perhaps realizing she'd pushed too far but unwilling to retreat, pride preventing you from backing down even when you should, attempted maintaining her aggressive stance. I'm just asking the questions that need asking. Someone must hold celebrities accountable for their privilege. Accountable for what? Courtney's voice rose slightly, though she maintained remarkable control given the circumstances. For working consistently, for making smart career choices, for surrounding myself with good people, for staying out of tabloids, for keeping my personal life private. Which of these things exactly am I supposed to feel guilty about? Joy's face reddened as she realized her attack wasn't having the intended effect. Courtney wasn't crumbling, wasn't apologizing, wasn't playing the role Joy had assigned her. Instead of backing down gracefully, Joy escalated further, seemingly determined to break Courtney's composure at any cost. Don't twist my words, Courtney. I'm talking about the reality of how this industry operates. Some people get opportunities handed to them, and others must fight for scraps. You've been remarkably fortunate in that regard. Fortunate? Courtney's voice carried a dangerous edge now, her professional mask completely abandoned. You think my career has been about fortune? Do you have any concept what it's like auditioning for hundreds of roles before landing one that transforms your life? Do you understand what it's like working 18-hour days for 10 years consecutively, memorizing pages of dialogue, hitting your marks flawlessly, managing the pressure of millions watching your every move? Joy waved her hand dismissively, and the gesture seemed calculated to infuriate, dismissing decades of work with a single contemptuous motion. Oh, cry me a river. You got paid millions of dollars to recite lines on a television show. Let's not pretend that's genuine hardship. The studio audience gasped audibly at Joy's callousness, and even camera operators seemed to lean closer, sensing they were witnessing something unprecedented, something that would be discussed for years. Courtney's eyes flashed with an intensity that made everyone in the studio sit up straighter, that transformed her from pleasant guest into force of nature. You know what, Joy? I've been in this business for over 30 years. I've worked with hundreds of people, crew members, executives, fellow actors, and I've never, not once, encountered someone with such blatant disrespect for what we do. She paused, letting that sink in before delivering the next devastating observation. But more than that, I've never met someone so determined to tear down another person for absolutely no reason other than their own issues. Joy, perhaps sensing she was losing control of the narrative but too prideful to retreat, made her biggest mistake yet. Maybe if you spent less time playing the victim and more time acknowledging your privilege, we could have an honest conversation here. That was the breaking point. Courtney's remaining composure shattered completely as she stood up from her chair, her voice rising to a level that reverberated through the entire studio with such force that it seemed to physically push against everyone present. Privilege? The word exploded from her with righteous fury. You want to talk about privilege? Let's talk about your privilege, Joy. You get to sit behind that desk every single day and attack people who can't defend themselves properly because they're trying to be professional. You get to make accusations without consequences, throw around judgments without basis, and tear down people's life work for your own entertainment. Never apologize for being excellent at what you do. The other hosts looked absolutely stunned. Whoopi finally found her voice, attempting weakly to regain some control. Ladies, maybe we should take a breath here. No. Courtney cut her off, her attention laser-focused on Joy, with the intensity of someone who'd finally decided that being nice wasn't worth tolerating abuse. I'm not done. You asked me questions. Now I'm going to ask you some. She took a step closer to the desk, her presence now dominating the entire space, despite, or perhaps because of, the raw emotion in her voice. When was the last time you created something meaningful? When was the last time you put yourself out there, creatively, and risked failure? When was the last time you built something instead of just tearing things down? Joy's mouth opened and closed, clearly unprepared for this level of pushback, for someone actually fighting back against her particular brand of attack journalism. I'm a comedian, Joy stammered weakly. Courtney let out a laugh that was anything but amused, sharp, bitter, carrying 30 years of dealing with people who confused cruelty with honesty. A comedian? Is that what you call this? Character assassination, dressed up as comedy? She moved even closer, her voice now steady and controlled but filled with unmistakable power. The power of someone who knows their worth and won't let anyone tell them otherwise. Let me tell you something about comedy, Joy. Real comedy brings joy. Real comedy lifts people up. Real comedy punches up at power, not down at people just trying to do their job. What you're doing isn't comedy. It's cruelty with a punchline. The camera captured every nuance of Courtney's expression as she continued, her words landing with devastating precision. You want to know what real privilege looks like? Real privilege is being able to sit in judgment of others without ever having to put yourself on the line. Real privilege is having a platform where you can say whatever you want without consequences. Real privilege is never having to create anything yourself while feeling entitled to destroy what others have built. Joy made one last desperate attempt to regain control, to frame herself as the reasonable one. I think you're taking this far too personally. This is just television. It's just conversation. No, Joy, Courtney replied, and her voice carried the weight of years of experience. Years of navigating an industry that tried to break her and fail. This isn't just television. This isn't just conversation. This is you using your position to try humiliating someone for your own entertainment. This is you attempting to diminish decades of hard work with unfounded accusations and petty jealousy. She looked directly into Joy's eyes with an intensity that made even watching through cameras feel uncomfortable. And most importantly, this is you showing everyone watching exactly who you really are when you think you can get away with it. The studio had become a pressure cooker, tension building to unbearable levels. Joy, now visibly shaken, but still clinging to her combative stance, made what would prove to be her final and most catastrophic error. You know what, Courtney? Maybe the reason you're so defensive is because deep down you know I'm right. Maybe you know that your success isn't really about talent. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. The collective intake of breath from the audience was audible. Even seasoned camera operators seemed stunned by the sheer audacity of questioning someone's fundamental talent after 30 years of demonstrable success. Courtney stood motionless for a moment, staring at Joy with an expression that could only be described as disbelief mixed with pure, concentrated fury. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet, controlled, and more terrifying than any scream could have been. "Did you just question my talent?" Each word was precisely enunciated, landing like individual blows. "Did you just sit there on national television and suggest that 30 years of work, 10 years of friends, multiple successful projects, countless professional relationships, and the respect of my peers is all just some kind of accident?" Joy tried weakly to backtrack, perhaps finally realizing she'd crossed a line from which there was no return. "I didn't mean to suggest—" "Oh no, you meant exactly what you said," Courtney interrupted, her voice gaining strength with each word, powered by righteous indignation. "Because that's who you are, isn't it, Joy? That's your brand. Tear people down, question their worth, make them feel small so you can feel big." She was on a roll now, 30 years of professionalism, giving way to 30 years of earned authority. But here's what you don't understand, and what you never will understand. Talent isn't something you can fake for 30 years. Success built on nothing doesn't last 3 decades. And respect from your peers isn't something you can buy or manipulate your way into. The other host sat in stunned silence. Whoopi looked like she wanted to disappear entirely. Sarah had actually covered her face with her hands. Alyssa appeared frozen. The audience was completely transfixed, witnessing what was clearly going to go down as one of the most explosive moments in daytime television history. Courtney continued, her voice building to a crescendo that commanded the attention of everyone in the studio and everyone who would later watch this moment go viral. "You want to know about my talent, Joy? My talent is showing up every single day and doing the work. My talent is treating every person on every set with respect and professionalism. My talent is learning my lines, hitting my marks, finding the truth in every character I play, and making millions of people around the world feel something real." She paused for emphasis, letting her words sink in completely. "That's talent, Joy. That's what real talent looks like." Joy attempted one more feeble response, her voice weak and unconvincing. "I just think people should be more honest about—" "Honest?" Courtney's voice exploded with a force that made everyone in the studio jump. "You want to talk about honesty? Let's be honest about what this really is. This isn't about my career or my success or anything related to legitimate journalism. This is about you being threatened by someone who's built something lasting while you've spent your career tearing things down." She moved even closer to the desk, her physical presence now matching the force of her words. This is about your own insecurities manifesting as attacks on people who represent everything you wish you could be, but never will be. The camera captured every devastating word as Courtney delivered what could only be described as a masterclass in defending your dignity with controlled fury. You sit behind that desk every day, safe in your little bubble, protected by your producers and your lawyers and your platform, throwing stones at people who are actually out there creating, building, contributing something positive to the world. She shook her head with something that looked almost like pity. And when someone finally stands up to you, when someone finally calls you out for what you really are, you act shocked and offended. Joy's face had gone completely pale, and for the first time since the interview began, she appeared truly speechless, her usual quick retorts having abandoned her completely. Courtney took a step back, her voice dropping to something calmer, but somehow more powerful. But here's the most honest thing I can tell you, Joy. Your opinion of me, your attacks on my character, your attempt to diminish my work, they mean absolutely nothing to me, because I know who I am. I know what I've accomplished. I know the relationships I've built, the lives I've touched, the work I've done. She let that sit for a moment before delivering her final blow. And no amount of small-minded, petty attacks from someone like you will ever change that. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity, as everyone processed what they just witnessed, a complete dismantling, delivered with devastating precision by someone who'd been pushed too far. Courtney delivered what would become the most quoted part of the entire exchange, her voice carrying wisdom earned through 30 years of navigating an industry designed to break people. What's really sad here, Joy, is that you had the opportunity to have a real conversation with someone who's been in this business for 3 decades. You could have asked about the craft, about the challenges, about the evolution of television, about working with incredible people, about the joy of creating something that brings happiness to millions of people. She shook her head slowly, disappointment evident in every line of her face. Instead, you chose to reveal exactly who you are. And now everyone watching knows it too. With that, Courtney picked up her purse with practiced dignity, looked directly into the camera, and spoke with a strength that resonated far beyond just this moment, this interview, this confrontation. To anyone watching who's ever been attacked for their success, who's ever been made to feel guilty for working hard and achieving their dreams, don't let anyone dim your light. Don't let bullies make you apologize for being excellent. She turned back to Joy one final time, her voice calm and clear, carrying the authority of someone who'd won this battle completely. And Joy, the next time you want to attack someone's life work on national television, maybe make sure you're talking to someone who doesn't have the strength to fight back, because today you picked the wrong person. Courteney Cox walked off the set with her head held high, leaving behind a studio full of stunned faces, one very humble talk show host who just learned what happens when you underestimate someone's strength, and millions of viewers who would watch this moment go viral within minutes. The aftermath was immediate and overwhelming. Social media exploded with support for Courtney, with hashtags praising her for standing up to bullying, for defending her work, for refusing to apologize for success. Entertainment journalists analyzed every moment, with most concluding that Joy had catastrophically miscalculated by attacking someone whose 30-year career spoke for itself. Within hours, the clip had been shared millions of times. Think pieces appeared, analyzing what the confrontation revealed about celebrity culture, about journalism ethics, about how we treat successful women in entertainment. In the days that followed, other celebrities privately thanked Courtney for saying what so many had felt but never articulated: that success doesn't require justification, that hard work deserves celebration rather than suspicion, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to let someone diminish you. Industry insiders reported that Joy had been called into meetings with producers, that the network was concerned about backlash, that advertisers were asking questions. The power dynamics had shifted dramatically. Courteney Cox had spent 30 years being professional, being gracious, being the person everyone wanted to work with. But on this day, she reminded everyone that being nice doesn't mean being weak, that grace under pressure has limits, and that defending your dignity is always worth it, even when it means erupting on live television and walking away from someone who'll never understand what it takes to build something that lasts. For everyone watching at home, for everyone who'd ever been made to feel guilty for their success, for everyone who'd ever been attacked for simply being good at what they do, Courteney Cox became a hero that day. Not because she lost her temper, but because she finally drew a line and said, "Enough." And if you found this story as powerful as millions of others did, do me a favor. Hit that like button for Winds of Thought, because stories like this deserve to be shared, remembered, and celebrated.